meeting old friends and making new friends and trying to take down the barriers that may exist between nations. When I first started going to gatherings, the first thing that was noticeable to me was that people come thousands of miles and spend all their time sitting at the same table. They only sit with their people. That's not the way it should be. They should come here, force yourself into a group if you have to. Give me your hand, I'm going to tell you who I am, and I would like to know who you are. I would like, because of a lot of the training that I've had in the past. I'm an alcohol and drug worker, and I have to go through quite a bit of training to get there. The one thing that was that was real visible to me after I left, that everybody that I touched, I took a part of them home with me, and now they're a part of me. And it's the same with these things. I met some people from way up north the other day. They live way back in the bush. But that bush is getting smaller because there are logging roads that go in there. And they only bring problems. They expose the communities that had a safe, remote life. They were unable to make a speedy trip to the liquor store or to a drug dealer, and now they've got people coming into their community bringing all this devastation. And once it starts, it's really hard to stop, you know? It really is. The young kids, they experiment a lot with drugs because they want to be like the city kids. They're exposed to it through the media, through the music, television. They want to be like the kids in Los Angeles, and that's terrible. You know, nobody wants to be like those people. Yes, so I've met a lot of people. I very likely won't remember their names, but I'll certainly remember their stories, you know. The conference, there are a lot of workshops that are going out there that are very interesting. In the past, we've done like nature walks and learned about medicines and plants and the plants that we have to preserve and the ones that are dying out on us and the many, many uses that these plants have given us. And then there's a museum that's very interesting, and it's Secwepemc. It's my people, and I'm learning more about my people from a museum display. You know, like I can identify now with the tools that they made, with what they were used for, with all the medicines that they have on display there. The beadwork, the leather work, the moccasin making, the tools, because we live in a relatively unproductive part of British Columbia, because a lot of it is semi-arid and dry, we were a very migratory people. We occupied the territory between the Fraser River and Jasper to the north, and over to Likely up by Williams Lake and down into Montana. We're bound by the same language. So there's no way anybody could tell me that we're not related in some way, right? Because when we were put on our reservations, we were put wherever the priests or whoever the government census takers were at the time. They'll say, this is your reserve now. And my reserve is so small that you could actually hold your breath as you cross it. You can take one breath and drive the speed limit and you will have gone through my reservation.
How many people live there?
There are 800 registered members, but only about 350 live there. When we build our last house there, this year or next year, we'll have no more land left. That's it. And the quality of the land is so poor that if you want to grow something like in your garden or plant a tree or a shrub or something, you have to go down to the grocery store to buy some soil. That's no lie. We live on a rock pile. So it almost became traditional for our young men to leave home when they were 15 to get out somewhere to find work. They worked a lot in the fruit industry, right from BC right down into California. They'd spend the winter down there, and when the season was over, they'd come back. Yeah, now they're just about, all of that age group was just about gone, and all we have is our memories of that, you know. So coming here and meeting some of those same people that I've been talking about, that's what's important, meeting new friends.
Does it give you hope for the future being here? And if so,
well, it sort of gives a general pace how things are happening. And it's things like this that make things happen. Like the elders go back to their community and they bring the messages of what the other communities are doing, and let's try that. Let's learn from their failures and let's capitalize on their successes, because it's a lot better than going out there and making all your own mistakes to learn something, right? We learn from other people's mistakes because we're all in a different place in our development. Like some people that are really isolated, and other people have been exposed to colonization for hundreds of years. And for some people, it's like yesterday. The roads are finally reaching them for mineral and resource extraction, you know. So we're kind of all in a different place, but coming here, it verifies for me that there are places out there where people, some communities, they all speak their language, and some of us don't, right? And that's really sad. We've got to preserve it somehow. And there was a lot of talk about it in the conference today.
What did you think about what Dr. Ignace was saying about that, preserving language? What are your thoughts about that? What do you say?
I know him very well, and like he comes from the neighboring reserve, and sometimes I wonder if it does any good to record it on disc or on tape or something. Like pronunciation is important. But I don't think I could learn from a tape. One-on-one conversation is the way to do it. But it's sad that somebody like myself ran away from the language because of fear. I'm afraid to hear it because it brings back memories of, like, when they're beating it out of you, you want to get away from that language as fast as you could. And my mother and dad, they came from two different languages. My dad was St'át'imc and my mother Secwepemc. So there was very little exchange in our house. And in order to protect the younger ones from being beaten in school, they taught us English at a fast pace, so that we won't have to suffer what some of the people ahead of us did. And that, I know people here that went to school not knowing a word of English, and now they don't know a word of their language. You know, like sometimes you wonder, am I the only one that's been affected that way? Did I waste my life living the results of that residential school? Or are there other people out there? There are other people out there because I meet them here. And we talk about it now.
That helps
Before we were, of course it helps me. The shell or whatever I'm in is very hard to come out of. There's fear, there's all kinds of things. There's resentments, you know. It's been tough.
But there's good news.
Well, the younger people are coming in. They're learning the language. We've got, in our territory, in the Secwepemc territory, we've got schools where they don't speak English. There's no English spoken in school at all. And people are flocking there. They're being educated in Secwepemc. They had to revise a lot of the curriculum because the curriculum wasn't right. You know what I mean? It's only from colonization's focus that we've been educated in. You know,
how's it changing? What's the new focus? What's the new?
Well,
paradigm?
I think as a result of gatherings like this, it changes the perspective or the view that the general population has of us. Because years ago you couldn't blame them because we were 100% drunk. And now our sobriety percentage and the number of people on the road of wellness is so high that one day it's going to outpace the people that are out there using. And hopefully the young people learn from it, learn from our mistakes, you know. I really do.
My wife and I lived in the Northwest Territories for many years.
Yeah. Like I have experience working in the North too. There's a community up there they call halfway. It's halfway between Fort St. John and Fort Nelson. And there was a lot of oil exploration going on up there. And it was really sad to see that the local people were living on $75 a month welfare. And there, back in 78, 79, and 80, there were people working on the Norman Wells pipeline. The steam feeder pipe fitters were earning $1,000 a day, and they were buying their groceries from the same store. And the prices were targeted towards the people that were making $1,000 a day rather than the local people that had to live on $75 a month. So that's the way, like, exploration and exploiting, they not only exploit the resources, but they also exploit the people. And that's really sad. There was promises of jobs. If you allow us into your territory, we will guarantee that you have jobs, providing you're qualified. There's nobody in the North qualified. I was from the South, and the only reason I was allowed on the oil rigs is because I'm a first aid attendant. The law requires that they have first aid attendants. They didn't like me, but they had to have me.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a double standard. If it wasn't for the law, I wouldn't have got the job. But I was good at what I'd done.
Do you think attitudes are changing now?
Yes, they are. I could tell when I walked into a restaurant the first day I was in town here that the people didn't rush to help me. And then I kind of suspect that their management must have got wind from somebody must have mentioned it. And this morning when I went into the restaurant, they jumped to help me because something like this with thousands and thousands of people, no matter where they come from, they bring money with them. And that's the only thing that non-natives understand is money. Their feelings towards us probably hasn't changed, but it will one day, because we're changing. We're not a bunch of drunk Indians walking into a cafe anymore. We conduct ourselves. We're very clean, and I think that these conferences, moving around different parts of the country, open the eyes of the general public, and they're great for any community. Not just business-wise, but for breaking down the stereotypes, the image of what they thought we are, you know, uneducated. There are some very gifted speakers here. There are a lot of very wise people here. Very, very wise. Those elders, like, if I see someone sitting alone, I go over and I introduce myself, and we talk. And like I said previously, I always bring part of them home with me. I will be welcome in their community, because I broke down the barrier. They're shy too, because they live so remote that they must have trouble communicating with human beings, because they live with animals, right? They live with the deer and the moose and the fish and the wolverines, and they make their living off the land. And then all of a sudden there's exploration planes flying over, and there's seismic lines going through, and there's very few people they can trust. And then along comes somebody like me that's very outspoken, very curious, wanting to learn, prying maybe a little bit too much.
So now let's see how much time we got. Hang on, I'm going to change my tape.
No.
Huh?
You still have, you want more?
Yeah, I got to work. Okay. Like, what's it going to take to bring these barriers down faster? We're talking about these interracial.
It's going to take time. Okay. There's an article. It's called the United Nations something on Indigenous rights. Canada is one of the only people that isn't willing to sign it, and they have very good reason that BC isn't treaty land. And according to Section 26 of that United Nations document, is that land will have to be returned to the original owners. But they're being pressured to sign it. Okay, that's going to get our foot in the door. We should, like where I live, there are ore trucks going this way, logging trucks going that way, lumber running this way, plywood running that way, minerals being extracted, coal is leaving our country, and we can't even afford to buy a board. We can't even afford to buy a board to repair our house. And yet they built a super highway through our place. I worked on the paving crew there myself, and the asphalt is 13 inches deep. That tells me they're going to haul some heavy ore out of there, because we're rich with resources, but we don't get any of it.